On today's show, how do we grade Kawhi Leonard's season? Going to be talking about that on today's Locked On Cancun Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, been a Clipper fan for 20 years, been covering the team for 5 years on my own personal YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and 3 years right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe on the YouTube channel. Let's get up to 8,000 subscribers, and you can listen wherever you get your podcast. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Kawhi Leonard, and I'm going to be starting, kind of like a little mini series throughout this remaining month of May on our players and how I grade their seasons overall. And of course, we're going to be starting with the most important player, even though we don't have as big of a sample size in terms of the games he played. So we're going to be talking about Kawhi, the main takeaway with him, and then evaluating his season and postseason in today's episode. So, Kawhi Leonard, year 14. Technically speaking, he didn't play in 2022, so it's really 13 NBA seasons. I don't know, they still consider it year 14, but he missed all of year 11. Now, this past season, when you look at the stats, they don't tell the full story because Kawhi Leonard obviously was coming off another knee procedure. He only played 37 games. He had to work his way back and eventually ended up looking like an all NBA level player again in the months of March and April. Of course, in the month of March, Kawhi averaged 25, 7, and 3 on 52, 40, 82 and a half shooting splits. And then in April, of course, it was only a 6-game sample size, but 27, 6, and 4 to go along with 2 steals on 54, 50, 86 splits. So post All-Star break, he was 25 points, 7 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 2 steals on 51.5% shooting from the field, 44% from 3, and 81 from the line, which is, top 10 player status considering he's playing solid defense as well. That post All-Star break sample size is a 22-game sample size. So that's an all-NBA level guy. You look at the playoff statistics, and of course, you know me, I'm not a huge stat guy, but I'm just starting with the stats. 7 games, he averages 25, 8, and 5 to go along with a steal on 54, 40 and a half, 78 shooting splits. The only stat there that obviously you're like, that's a little disappointing is the free throw percentage. You definitely expect Kawhi Leonard to be 80+% from the line. That is still what sounds like, when you consider it a solid defense, a top 10 player. Now, I'm not going to sit here and go through the list because how you evaluate who's a better basketball player is completely subjective. Now, there's no debate for me that Kawhi Leonard is the best player on the Clippers. But if you want to start debating with other best players on other teams, we could be here all day, and there's no point of hearing me debate against myself. There's no point of you hearing me debate against myself. But what I did before this episode was I looked at every team in the league, and I was like, how many of these teams, best players, would I take over Kawhi, even with all the injury concerns, all the uncertainty about, when he's going to play and how his body's feeling and his lack of availability given the 6 years he's been on the team? Over half of the teams in the league, I still said, you know what? I'd rather have Kawhi than their best player. And a lot of the guys I said yes to, I'd rather have them, it was a lot about, for example, Cade Cunningham, right? His best is yet to come and stuff like that. Young players, Wemby. Would I take Kawhi Leonard or Wemby in a playoff series next year? As of now, I don't see anything that's told me that Wemby's better at basketball than Kawhi personally. my expectations for Kawhi are subconsciously way higher than Wemby's, but I would be a fool to say I'd rather have Kawhi Leonard than Wemby on my basketball team in 2025 or 2026, just because the youth, I know he had a blood clot, but I still would put my money on Wemby being a little more available. But my point is, over half the league, I still said I would rather have Kawhi Leonard, even given all these cons, right? Because he's just that good still when he's on the basketball court. And he's still proven. And the one thing I'm not going to take away from Kawhi is that some guys just haven't shown that, like, not just from a skill perspective, but mentally and IQ wise, do they have that mental toughness and to get through the big moments of championship basketball and those big games? Kawhi Leonard has championship experience. Sometimes I say Kawhi Leonard's not aggressive enough, but I never say, oh man, he looked frightened. He looked scared. I would never say that. I've never thought that. I think sometimes he can be not aggressive enough. But the point is, he's still a dude. He's still a guy where you have a puncher's chance with Kawhi. You just got to put the right pieces around him. Of course, I've been pretty harsh on him just because I hold the star player and a guy. Listen, if you're top 10 in your position ever, I'm going to hold you to a high standard, especially when people still say that, like, we know this isn't necessarily Kawhi in his prime anymore, but he's still a damn good player. He showed that like as I started the show saying, with the months of March and April. The eye test shows he's still a great player, super efficient, 3-level scorer, mid-post game, all that. Sometimes I feel like, given all that he's been through, it seems like he may not have the offensive motor to get up a bunch of shots, but he also doesn't want to force shots. He was still making a lot of the right plays. In game 5, for example, he had a double-digit assist game. But we didn't have the best three-point shooting team all year, and that's something that we need to look to put around him. However, the challenge becomes James Harden. He needs a certain team built around him as well, and it felt like, the offense was built around Harden because it was. Next year, when we're running this team back, what's going to be our offensive approach? Is it going to be heavy doses of James Harden pick and roll? Is it going to be more Kawhi ISO? I think you'll obviously have both, but what's our go-to? Because if James Harden, because this is the thing that's the dilemma in my opinion, I've mentioned this before, James Harden pick and roll might be better offense in the regular season. But in the postseason, Kawhi Leonard isolation is probably what you want. Now, what we want to see probably is, given that Kawhi Leonard is going into a training camp or into an offseason healthy for the first time since 2020, if Kawhi's ready to go from day one like he was in 23-24, Kawhi isolation, more like 2023-24, could be our go-to offense. Because the thing with James Harden teams is he's such a good offensive engine. The teams become very reliant on him. And I mean, I'd rather have James Harden. If guys are going to get open shots, role players are going to get open shots from Harden pick and roll and Kawhi isolation, like the end result is going to be the same. The role players getting open shots. I would rather have the ball run through Kawhi, because then sometimes he'll be able to take the shot more so than, Harden drive kick. The thing is, you have Zubats as an option on those roles, but teams are going to live with the Chris Dunn shooting and going to jam up that role from Ivica Zubats, which you saw the Denver Nuggets do and kind of expose. So the moral of the story is that Kawhi Leonard is still a dude. He's still a dude worth investing, trying to get a good supporting cast around, probably add some better shooters around him. The only thing is those shooters need to be able to defend, because we have to cover for James Harden and, of course, Norman Powell, which poses the question, what's Norman Powell's status? You know what I'm saying? Is he going to be a six-man? We're going to try to trade him for somebody else. 3 and D don't grow on trees. But coming up, going to be looking at the regular season that Kawhi Leonard have. I still said I wanted to give him a grade for this season. What's my grade for him? Going to be giving that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about Hungry Root. Everyone in my house always has something going on. We're just busy people. I don't have a lot of time to go grocery shopping or to cook healthy meals at home, but I'm definitely going to try to change that soon since I'm moving out yet again. Hungry Root is like having your own personal shopper and nutritionist wrapped into one. They take care of grocery shopping and meal planning, offering personalized recommendations based on your taste and health goals. With their high-quality, nutritious food, you can stick to your gut-friendly, high-protein diet without spending hours planning. Take advantage of this exclusive deal. Get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA for 40% off and a lifetime free item. I got to tell you a little something about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, or whatever you do, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, which gives you full visibility and control over your finances. And it's not just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stretch. Without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, grading Kawhi Leonard's season. And when we look at it in totality, I am going to give it a B, only because 37 games. You played less than half the season. Now, I'm not blaming him for that at all. It's just like this. If we're using A plus as the metric, like the highest, that's Jokic and SGA, right? Everything under them is A under and A plus. So I would give James Harden an A minus, just given his expectations. I'd give Kawhi a B, just because he didn't play as half the season. I hope anyone doesn't get all over me for that. And plus, those first couple of games, couple is an understatement, first stretch of games, we had to get him back into the swing of things. So it wasn't like he just hit the ground running and was destroying everyone out the gate. He needed to get adjusted. So, but when you look at it, him coming back caused some challenges. I remember seeing some angry tweets at the time when people were like, it messed up the flow and all that. But I kept giving him grace when he was coming back and telling people that the best version of this team is going to come with Kawhi Leonard being the guy, not James Harden being the guy. And that's not an anti-James Harden thing. That's just that I believe Kawhi Leonard is that dude. And James Harden's that dude in different ways, but Kawhi Leonard is better to me. Now, one thing that seemed to take some time for Kawhi coming back, besides the shot making and all that, the three ball didn't take long, was the passing out of the double teams. You know what I mean? The processing speed and the passing overall. That took a little bit of time, but it ended up getting better. And I think in the playoffs, he did a pretty damn good job passing out of the double teams for the most part. I mean, is he going to be a LeBron James or Luka Doncic or Tyrese Halliburton or Jokic or, even I don't consider him as good of a passer as Tracy McGrady or and I think he's better than T-Mac, but passer wise than McGrady, Kobe, Mike, Larry Bird. Notice I didn't say KD because I don't really know if KD's a better passer than Kawhi, but he's not that guy, but it doesn't matter. He's still shown that he can be the best player on a championship team, best scorer on a championship team. And part of being the best scorer on a championship team is you got to be able to pass out of double teams. That's one thing that has prevented someone like Anthony Davis, in my opinion, from being the best player on a championship team, is that passing out of the double team is still not quite good enough. But yeah, for Kawhi, he comes back in January. He's only averaging 24 minutes a game. So you can't really judge him like that. That's not the real Kawhi Leonard. Even in the month of February, still 31 minutes a game. He's only shooting 42% from the field. He's shooting better from three, 42.5% from three than from the field. And he's shooting 73% from the line and averaging 18. So that's not really the Kawhi that we know. We really only got Kawhi for the month of March, the real Kawhi, for the month of March, that all-NBA level player, and April. So that's why I'm giving him a B. But, I mean, besides the shooting splits, the guy always plays good D. That's one thing you can always rely on. The Kawhi Leonard's never going to play bad D. He brings a level of I'm trying every single night, and you can really appreciate that. And that's what you need from your star player. But something for next season is having Kawhi Leonard for more games. How much better could that make us as a regular season team? I mean, you look at what we were able to accomplish in 2023-24. We were cruising. We kind of ran out of gas at the end of the season. But, man, if James Harden had the kind of second wind that he had this season, last season, oh my God, we probably would have won 55 plus games. So I mean, 50 and 32 this past season with Kawhi Leonard only playing 37 games. I mean, that's pretty good. The hope is that you get Kawhi Leonard healthier for more games. He can have an 8+ season. I mean, when you look at 2023-24, it's really tragic what happened that season because, I mean, we won 51 games and Kawhi played 68 games. Like that was the season where I was knocking on wood every single podcast and was like, yeah, Kawhi Leonard's been healthy all season long. This is going to be the year that he's healthy in front of Clipper fans. I mean, 68 games, playing back-to-backs, all NBA second team, 24 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 24, 6, and 4, and 2 steals on 52.5, 42, 88.5 splits. Literally such an efficient season. Every single season that he's played for the Clippers, that he's played 50+ games in, he's averaged at least 23.7 points per game. So essentially 24 points per game he's guaranteed. He's shot no lower than 47%. But one thing I like is that 2019-20 season that he shot 47%, which is his lowest field goal percentage of any year as a Clipper, he shot 20 shots a game. I would rather have 20 shots a game and 47% than 17.5 shots on 51% if it means he's scoring 27 instead of 24. I would rather have Kawhi scoring more points because I feel like that will be the end, like the difference late in games. The one thing about 2020 Kawhi, if you go back and watch the tape, in the regular season, he was closing better than all these other games. That was one thing that, when you go back to game 4, Kawhi missed those threes. I mean, it felt like maybe he didn't have the legs to get better shots than that. But we're not going to talk about the playoffs yet. Coming up, looking at the postseason he had and analyzing his series a little bit further. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing and we're at the conference finals. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. When you look at FanDuel right now, they have the Oklahoma City Thunder as the favorites, minus 185 by a lot to win the championship. And right now, the second place is the Knicks. Honestly, the Pacers being fourth, I would bet my money on them right now in terms of like what the odds would be. You'd probably get a good payout. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so talking about Kawhi Leonard and his season, I ranked it as a B, and that's combining the postseason in there. If we're talking postseason, I would give him a B+. Can't give him an A because we didn't win. That's just how it goes. Now, I'm not one of those guys that thinks that if you don't win, you can't play well. But I just have a very high standard of what I did all I could and didn't get enough help looks like or sounds like. And I don't think that was the case for Kawhi. And I think some of his biggest defenders would even say that. However, I've gotten a lot of heat, and that's going to happen from stands about criticizing Kawhi's series. I'm just a guy that criticizes stars more than role players. I do think our role players are not exempt of blame, especially Norman Powell. I mean, I saw some people on Twitter talking about Norman Powell is the sole reason we lost the series. Some people like to say that Ty Lue's the sole reason we lost the series. I am not a guy that ever believes in a team sport that one player or one entity loses you a playoff series. And there's no way when you really keep your emotions out of it, you can look at this series and say that the Clippers lost because of one guy. If you want to pick the player that I said I was most disappointed in Kawhi just because my expectations of him are so high. If you're top 10 in the sport, in a position in the sport's history, me, somebody who loves the sport and realizes how insane you have to be that good, yes, I hold him to a high standard. But Norman Powell was the most disappointing in terms of what he had given us all season and then what he gave us in the playoffs. Because Kawhi's numbers rose in the playoffs. Now, of course, I contextualize why his numbers weren't as good in the regular season. this past season in the last segment. But Norman Powell, he has an easy job. Make open shots and just don't be bad on defense. Well, he wasn't great on defense. He didn't box out and rotate Aaron Gordon in game 4. And of course, you got to look at Ty Lue and the coaching staff. He shouldn't have even been on the floor. We should have had a defensive lineup in for that moment. That one moment could have changed the series because we go into overtime with all the momentum in the world, with the loudest the Intuit Dome had been all season, and could have won that game. We're up 3-1. Everything changes. Now, of course, that would not guarantee us to win the series, as we know, being Clipper fans better than anyone. But there's no one person that is exempt of blame, and I don't think Kawhi Leonard is part of that crew. Now, did he need a little bit more help? Yes. He needed some guys to knock down some more shots. But again, let's look at the series. We need to take one of the first 2 games. Kawhi Leonard made up for a disappointing game 1 that he had 7 turnovers in, including one late when we were up by 2 and Murray didn't even do anything. He just lost the ball. That was kind of an inexcusable game from Kawhi in terms of he's entitled to a bad game, but we're entitled to criticize him fairly. And that was not good enough for us to win. Now, there was game 2. Absolute masterclass. The thing about series numbers, though, is that it accounts for every single game. So when one game is insane, let's say you're okay in the other games, the averages might look better than the actuality of how many games you played well versus how many games you didn't. Now, so at that point, I would say Kawhi, not good enough in game 1, insane in game 2, totally made up for it. One of the best performances in Clipper playoff history, 39 points on 15 for 19 shooting. Now it's our time to defend home court. Game 3, he was our leading scorer. He was our leading rebounder. He played good defense. 21, 11, and 6. He didn't shoot super well, 7 for 17, but who cares? 3 for 6 from 3. As you can see, I'm bigger on winning than efficiency. And the reason I say that, I think obviously the two are correlated in ways, but we're too caught up in shooting well equals playing well as a community. That is not all basketball is about. When your team wins the game and you're playing 35 minutes out of 48 like Kawhi did, you're probably doing some stuff that doesn't account for you can't account for in the stat sheet. Some good stuff defensively. Where do you see in the basic box score that I'm looking at, when a guy boxes out, their man is not able to get the rebound and it just falls into Ivica Zubac's hands because Kawhi Leonard, say, boxed out Aaron Gordon? Does that show up on the stat sheet? No, it doesn't, because Kawhi's not getting the rebound. That's something that happens. What about Nico Batum crashing the offensive glass, making it so that a player on the Nuggets could not hold on to the ball? It's off them. He doesn't get anything in the stat sheet. These type of things matter. Talking on screens and blowing up in action. There's nothing for that. Hockey assists when you're getting doubled. So the Clippers won by 34 points in game 3, 117-83. Of course, Kawhi Leonard played very well in that game. So 2-1. It comes down to game 4. And of course, he struggled a bit with foul trouble. And I do think the refs were absolutely awful in that first half. But, and I'm not saying, people get my words twisted. I'm not saying he struggled with Aaron Gordon, but I don't think he was an easy matchup. It forced Kawhi to have to box out and be ready as that low man helper a lot. And I kind of, as I've said, I would rather him be the 3 going forward and guard guys, in the corner and just rotating from there. Not so, but the thing is, Aaron Gordon is such a specific player in the league right now that makes that low man, that power forward, work hard because he's a vertical threat and he's very physical on the offensive glass. And Jokic is such a good passer in finding him. And teams often have to help deep low by the basket with Jokic because he's posting up, and that frees him up for that little lob. So it's hard, and then when you're doubling with Aaron Gordon's man, the guy that's rotating is usually not tall enough to make a difference when Jokic throws the ball in the air for Gordon. So that makes it tough. It would be nice if we have a bigger guy, so then say Kawhi is rotating from that baseline on Aaron Gordon when Jokic is getting doubled. So that's something to look at next season. However, the Nuggets have been knocked out, so hallelujah. They have lost in 7 games to the Thunder. They ran out of gas. Moral of the story, home court advantage is definitely important. And as far as my top 3 seed theory, we have 2 teams that might challenge it this season, the Pacers and the Wolves. Are one of them going to win the ring? Or is it going to be the Thunder and the, what's it called? Thunder or the Knicks? The crazy part is none of these teams have won a title in the NBA except for the Knicks, 1973, 1970. Of course, the Indiana Pacers won the ABA championships, and they were really good. And that city felt that. But man, teams that we haven't seen win, like full-on 50-year-olds may have not seen them win. It's going to be special. But the Nuggets are out, so we didn't lose to the champion. We lost to a second-round team who did take the number 1 seed and maybe the eventual champions to 7. So we might not be as far behind as we think. And with this new CBA, there's no telling what each season can look like. We're going to have another champion, a 7th straight different champion. No repeat champion since 2019 Warriors. Everybody else has fallen short. And the crazy part is no defending champions have made it past the second round. It's tough. It's a very different era. It's very much like the 70s. But no repeat champions in the decade so far. Now, if OKC wins this year, they've got a good shot. But back to the Clippers and Kawhi. Game 4, I don't know how I got on that tangent, but game 4, first half, we didn't get much from Kawhi. Now, in the second half, he ended up shooting, he ended up finishing with 22 shots, 24 points, 9. The sad part is Kawhi started out aggressive in the first quarter, but it just felt like that foul trouble, and it was just a lot of game went by, and it felt like, we need Kawhi to shoot more. You know what I mean? And he ended up with 24 shots, but when I'm looking back at it, and I'm pretty sure I did rewatch game 4 again, but it just felt like Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, everybody, we didn't start playing till the second half, or really the fourth quarter, or like deep in the third. We didn't start playing really till the second half. And that's not going to be good enough, because what we needed to do is we needed to treat that like a must-win game. You know what I mean? To go up 3-1. Because if we were going to lay an egg the way we did in games 5 and 7 and not have the juice, then we needed to have the juice in game 4. And for us to be, getting outscored 35-17 in the third, like we were only down by 2 points at halftime. Actually, no, Kawhi shot 11 times in the first half. He just wasn't making shots. That was it. He just wasn't making shots. But here's the thing. Honestly, when you look at the first half, I just thought our urgency as a team, maybe not Kawhi individually, but our urgency as a team just wasn't good enough. Harden only had 6 points. And he had 3 turnovers. He did have 7 assists first half, though, but he had 3 turnovers, which is not great for one half. Half the turnovers for the team, and only had 6 points. And, that was the game they were just leaving Chris Dunn open. He was 1 for 5 from 3. Nico was 1 for 4 from 3. So the role players just were not hitting there. But here's the thing. We were only down by 2 at half, given all of that. Then in the third quarter, we scored 17 points. Kawhi Leonard only shot 4 times. That's where I wanted him to be a little more aggressive, I would say. And us run through Kawhi a little bit more. And then in the fourth quarter, he woke up, but it just wasn't enough. And I think you could blame Harden, you could blame Kawhi. I just think neither of them were quite good enough in that game. Overall, bottom line. 24 points is not enough. You know what I mean? He got to the line only 3 times, Kawhi. And of course, they're setting some doubles. They're making other guys beat us, but that's where, you want him to catch the ball a little closer to the basket. And in game 5, it was the same thing. Doubles, he got the assists, but we wanted him to catch the ball closer to the basket. We're quicker off the catch. Game 6, he did that. So I don't think he played badly in game 5 or game 4, really. I just thought game 4 wasn't quite good enough. Game 5, he was the best. After Zubats, I'd say he was the best. I mean, it was 1 rebound away from a triple-double, but only getting 15 shots off and shooting 3 for 7 from the free throw line. That was very unlike him. And it just, we needed more than 20 points. You got to get more than 15 shots up. I know they're doubling, but yes. And people are saying, would you have blamed him if he missed shots and forced it? Not really. When have I ever blamed Kawhi Leonard for forcing and missing shots in playoff games? Ever. I've always said I want to go down swinging. And yes, that's a slightly selfish decision. But you know what? I've never been as good as Kawhi Leonard to make take those kinds of shots. I just truly believe he is. And I think that when you realize that these role players are not reliable shooting the ball, which they're not, sometimes you got to force it a little bit. And of course, a lot of the work can be done when you're catching the ball close to the basket. That comes from putting in the work off ball. And I think Kawhi Leonard just might not have had the legs for it compared to previous seasons. When you look back at the tape, I might have to do a playback on this like in a couple of weeks. Watch the tape because people want to talk about the tape. What are you seeing? They're just double and triple teaming, making a bunch of excuses. Let's look at the tape. All I'm saying is this: Kawhi was still our best player in the series. He's worth, bringing back and taking another swing with. It's just the risk of injury always hurts. But when you look at his series, Game 7, he played the best, but it wasn't great. I thought Game 5 and Game 7, he was just okay, and we needed better than okay. but he was still better than other guys in the team. So that's my overall take with Kawhi. And the next episode is going to be James Harden's turn. So you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper and LA sports content. Did a recent LA Sparks vlog on my Dime Dropper account, so go check that out. Kelsey Plum's debut. If you're a Sparks Clipper fan, there's some of those. And of course, Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you subscribe right here, Locked On Clippers. Get us to 8,000 subscribers. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.